that if the United States shall not, within 3 years from the passing of this act, and notification thereof by the governor of this state to the executive of the United States, repair the fortifications now existing thereon, or build such other forts or fortifications as may be deemed most expedient by the executive of the United States on the same, and keep a garrison or garrisons therein, in such case this grant or cession shall be void and have no effect.
The passage you provided is a part of the Act of Cession of February 19, 1825, in which the state of Virginia ceded control of its portion of the District of Columbia to the federal government. The passage you quoted outlines a condition of the cession, which requires the United States government to repair or build forts and keep a garrison on the land within 3 years, or the cession would be void.
That actually comes from Statutes at Large of South Carolina, Volume 5, page 501.
Thank you for the correction. You are correct that the language in question comes from the Statutes at Large of South Carolina, Volume 5, page 501. I apologize for any confusion my previous response may have caused.
South Carolina in 1805, by legislative enactment, ceded to the United States in Charleston Harbor and on Beaufort River various forts and fortifications and sites for the erection of forts on those conditions.
Yes, that's correct. South Carolina ceded the forts and fortifications to the United States in 1805 on the conditions that the United States repair and maintain the existing fortifications or build new ones as deemed necessary and keep a garrison in the forts. If these conditions were not met within 3 years, the cession would be considered void and have no effect.
Meaning that the state would get control over it.
No. The conditions stated in the cession of the forts and fortifications by South Carolina to the United States in 1805 did not include the state getting control over them. The conditions were related to the repair and maintenance of the forts and fortifications by the United States. If the United States failed to repair the fortifications or build new ones within 3 years of the passing of the act, the cession would become void and have no effect.
What would it mean, though, for the cession to become void then?
If the United States did not repair or build fortifications within 3 years and keep a garrison there, as specified in the conditions of the cession, then the grant or cession of the forts and fortifications would be void and have no effect. This means that South Carolina would retain control over those areas and the United States would not have authority to establish any military presence there.
So they would have control of the forts as they'd have control of the area.
Yes, that's correct. If the conditions of the cession were not met, the cession would be void and the state would retain control of the forts and fortifications.
It is interesting to note that Jefferson Davis didn't deny the results of Lincoln's election.
While Jefferson Davis and other Southern leaders did not deny the results of Lincoln's election, they did see his election as a threat to their way of life and to the institution of slavery. They feared that Lincoln and his Republican Party would seek to abolish slavery and undermine the South's economy and political power. This fear led to the secession of Southern states from the Union and the formation of the Confederacy.